All right, getting started up here again after a minor delay with not having my keyboard's wireless dongle, but I've got keyboard figured out. A little bit of a kludge, but working. Give folks a second to get connected up. And once again, I do have to specify for YouTube that this is a sponsored video and the product that I'm reviewing was sent to me in order to review it. So I see we are back up on YouTube. So we are going to continue here. Let me full screen this thing so I can see what we're doing too. There we go, full screen. No, that's not quite what I wanted. Preview. Let's see. Good times. All right. So we are back at the startup sequence where they want you to set up your user accounts. And we do have a little bit of delay on my HDMI recorder, so I apologize if it seems a little laggy here. We're just going to put in some basic information to get started. And we will get logged into my Wi-Fi network. This is just the normal setup for Raspberry Pi OS. This is the same as you would get with any Raspberry Pi device. And we are getting connected up. This is the latest and greatest, fastest Raspberry Pi model that exists. So this is as fast as it gets. Nope, they want me to choose the default browser. Well, we'll go with Chromium. Do we want to update? We probably do. I have no idea how old the install on the SD card is. It's always a good idea to do those updates first. Now, as expected, I'm not blown away by the speed here, although on paper this is a substantial speed upgrade compared to the previous Raspberry Pi models. Different benchmarks will show it anywhere from 2 to about 8 times the performance of the Raspberry Pi 4. While this thing gets updates, we'll check our YouTube. Hopefully we are still going to be good with the microphone, which evidently cut out when I plugged in HDMI earlier. And so it did find updates. It is downloading those updates. On the recorded version, we will speed through this. But on the live, it's live. while we're waiting, the dongle for my keyboard was nowhere to be found, so it looks like I'm in the market for a new keyboard. And I ended up disassembling my PiTop 2, which is a laptop that was designed around the Raspberry Pi 2. It's actually a pretty neat device, and ultimately was let down by the fact that it used the Raspberry Pi 2, which is extremely slow, quite painful to use. In fact, here we have, or I guess it's a Raspberry Pi 3. Still extremely slow, quite painful to use. Definitely not what you would have wanted in a desktop system. Raspberry Pi 4 is really where it started to make sense for that type of use case. But the PiTop 3, I guess it was a fully integrated laptop with a battery and a pretty nice screen. It didn't have speakers, which was odd. The speakers were an add-on that you would plug into the back. But I was able to disassemble that enough to get the keyboard out in a usable fashion. Not ideal. One of the things that they claimed was that the SD card interface was 2 to 4 times as fast as the previous version. It's really hard to gauge that going by the slider on an update installation gauge, but I'm not blown away. Especially with it being a name brand SD card. While we're waiting on this, because this might be a couple minutes, let's have a quick look and see what the value on this is compared to if you were to purchase items separately. Let's switch over to our screen capture. Yeah, let's jump over to Amazon. Put together a shopping cart. Raspberry Pi 5. This is an 8 gigabyte model. So we're just going to grab the first one here. Then we are going to need a case. Now this one does have a fan included, so we should be looking for cases that have a fan. This one looks pretty comparable to what we have. It's not identical, but it's similar enough. Comes with the fan. Go ahead and add that. Now we have a SanDisk Ultra 64 gigabyte micro SD card. Do they sell them in individual quantities? Here we go. Add that to our cart. And look for a Raspberry Pi 5 power supply. Try and find something pretty comparable. This is a nicer power supply that came with it. And let me verify the wattage from its box. So it's 27 watt. So we will add this 27 watt power supply. Now we're just kind of randomly choosing here based on what we see. And so we also had, the HDMI cables. 2 of them. And they are probably 6 feet long. So look for something kind of similar. We'll say this is close enough. And we need to double it. And that might be everything. Got Raspberry Pi, we've got a case, SD card, power supply, 2 HDMI cords. So what we're looking at here is a subtotal of 146. Let's see how our install is going. Video capture device. System is up to date. Okay. And they want to restart. Here we go. Now I will adjust the resolution on this once we get booted into the full operating system, so it'll be a little bit easier for you and I both to read. All right, here's Raspberry Pi Desktop. Let's go down to our preferences. And I'm guessing resolution will be in appearance settings. It has been a while since I used Raspberry Pi Desktop. Maybe it's not going to be in appearance settings. Nope, it's going to be somewhere else. Desktop preferences. Looks just the same. Yep, it's also not giving us resolution options. Never fear. Go back up to our settings. Raspberry Pi configuration. There's display. And that does not have resolution. Do we have to do it through command line? That would seem unreasonable. Let's see if we have X, R, and R. This little bit of lag is not ideal. And we're going to do output maybe it doesn't need me to give it an output. All right, there's an auto. That's good. It's been a while since I've used XR&R from the command line, so I apologize for taking a minute here. Yeah, and then it's minus mode. And I think we have to give it our refresh. So let's see what refresh we get. Oh, we don't actually get a 1280 by 720 option. We've got 1280 by 960. We'll do 1152 by 864. Nope. I missed a dash. And I added an extra dash here. Okay, output auto not found. Oh. Well, none of those options help us. Okay, nothing in there helps us. All right, well, it's kind of unfortunate. Just have a look real quick. It says it should be in advanced. I didn't see it. Did you see it? I definitely didn't see it. All right, no changes made. missed it. All right, we might be getting somewhere. There you go. 1280 by 720 should be much nicer. And hopefully less laggy. Didn't get it fast enough. The last 30 or 40 minutes of live stream will be completely edited out of the eventual video. All right, I got it. All right, so here we are. We are in Raspberry Pi OS. We've got our resolution turned down to something more reasonable for you guys to see. And let's go ahead and fire up our web browser, see how that goes. Now, I have used my HDMI recorder here for recording various things, but I haven't tried it on video, so it may not actually represent video playback here. What it will represent is how long it takes for the browser to start up and start being useful. This is the first time I've launched it, and it's trying to load a website it has not been to before. And it is taking its time. We are on Wi-Fi that should be pretty quick. Let's make sure everything should be working. Yep, everything's looking fine there. And the Raspberry Pi site is just taking forever to load. We'll let that go in its own tab and open up a new one. Oh, it did not get one of those characters. All right, we'll see how this works. So far, it seems like it does not work. So this is the default Chromium that comes with Raspberry Pi OS and was selected as the default browser. And it is fully up to date, so there's no excuse. So we'll let that run. If this doesn't work, then I'm assuming nothing works. Here's something local on my network. So I am going to say Chromium doesn't work. Bye, Chromium. It's unfortunate because I'm generally a fan of the Chromium browser. We'll go start up Firefox. Again, this is the first time it's being run. We did get their greeting page. Looks like other pages are loading in the background. So whatever issue that was an issue with Chromium. Come over to YouTube, see how that loads. That's always one of the tricky things on these single board computers, is being able to reasonably play videos from YouTube and other places. See how this goes. What's up, guys?
And your favorite things are gone, you left me
We are in the woods right now, and we are
Time
so
goes
remote
slow
that
when
we've
you're
got stuck in
counting
the screen cover here. I can't do any live streams
You
for a couple
left
days.
me
So, gonna try and put some videos up, but it is slow going.
I
We'll see what we can
don't
do
know
there.
how to say.
But here's our spot. Over here,
Honey,
we got a
it's
nice
the
spot right
worst
next to
day.
that. Pause that. And maybe that's something we should do next. Let's try this out on a screen with a camera and remove the potential lag from the HDMI recorder. I do need to change the resolution. I happen to know the display I have is 1280 by 600, which is pretty common for small displays. And we'll just get that working before we switch over to it. And maybe it's not one of our options. Well, that would be unfortunate. Let's plug it in and see what it does. We'll go ahead and shut the Pi down so it can boot up with HDMI on the device that we'll be using. And then we're going to switch over to our overhead view. So 1 second. Here's the beautiful Pi Top 2 keyboard. It's bright green. And I need to remember where I put that screen. So this is a pretty common screen that you can get on Amazon and other places. We need the HDMI and the power. And don't worry, we will zoom way in on this guy, so you'll be able to see it just fine. Just give me a moment to do that. And I'll do something about that glare too. power cycle. Here we go. Should be initializing the HDMI. There we go. Get our focus. This is a little bitty guy, but for sure the interface is far more responsive using this than using the HDMI recorder. And we'll give it a second to load up our video here. I don't believe the screen has audio in it, but this is much smoother. Let's go back, pull up a regular video so we can pull up stats. We're going to do full screen. Stats for nerds. All right, looks like there were a few frames dropped right up front when the video started, but that number is no longer increasing. It's sitting at 71. It's been there for a little while, so this is actually going to be pretty good for playing YouTube, at least at 1080p or so. All right, now Raspberry Pi OS is a fairly complete operating system, and it's based on Debian, so there's a lot of stuff installed here. Looks like we've got VLC Media Player. They may not have installed too much out of the box here, but there's a lot of stuff that can be installed. We've got our add remove software. Now that we've done the video test, let's go ahead and switch back to the HDMI recorder. All right, there we go. So it's a bit laggy, but it's all here. Now we do have programming tools here. That's an interesting one for me. Still updating the list of available packages. We'll just give it a moment to do that. I'm definitely not blown away by the speed when it's running from the SD card. I was wondering if they had an easy method of installing to an external USB drive. Looks like that is still a manual process even with the Raspberry Pi 5. So that's unfortunate. Just about done updating the list here. Oh, typing on the wrong keyboard. No, the package manager is not quick. But here we go. This is what I was after. Visual Studio Code. And I think in the installer here, we just click the little box next to it. It's easier said than done when you've got a little lag. And we'll come down and hit apply, which is mostly hidden by my head. So the question for me is going to be, can you use Visual Studio Code on Raspberry Pi 5 with AI agents? And also, is it even reasonable to run Visual Studio Code on here? It is an 8 gigabyte model, so it should be good. They've been shipping Visual Studio Code since the Raspberry Pi 4, I believe. Again, I'm not impressed with the speed of running this from an SD card. The Raspberry Pi Foundation is always claiming that these are ready to be small desktop PCs. At this stage, I still feel like I mostly disagree with that. Let's see, in our stream, I got a message in the chat here. What are the criteria for a good Pi next to speed? Well, I would say the first thing that I'm concerned about is stability, and that was an area where I had issues in previous Pi models, the 3 and the 4, especially if you're trying to use Bluetooth and Wi-Fi at the same time. That was where I was having some real trouble, and that was also something that I actually needed to do. So when I switched away from the Pi to an Intel-based mini PC, that stability issue went away, and I was a lot happier. But some of the other shortcuts that they took with the Pi, or maybe they're not shortcuts so much, but they're cost-saving steps that they took, where the USB and the Ethernet used to share the same bus, so neither of them was particularly fast, and if you used one, it slowed down the other, things like that. I'm still not a fan of the GPU in the Pi being largely, at least on the 4, it was still closed source. And there was a project that was building portions of it to be open source, but my understanding is we're still not at the point where we have a fully open source driver for this GPU. I mean, ultimately, the Pi, when compared to more traditional mini PCs, or I'm a huge fan of, if you need something affordable to use as a little Linux box, it's hard to beat the bang for your buck that you get getting a used ThinkPad on eBay. Like the Pi was really awesome when it was a new thing because that space didn't really exist, or at least didn't exist for the hobbyist. But these days, I think the novelty of it being credit card size has mostly worn off. At least I find that it has. Now, when you're talking about using it as a little Linux box, I mean, it is a pretty capable box. Don't get me wrong there. Like what we're saying, using it as a desktop is not the same experience that you would get running a web server or running some other custom application code on there. Definitely, you can run things like Pi-hole. You can run Docker containers on these, and they're great. You can have little Kubernetes clusters made up of Raspberry Pis, and in that environment, they can be pretty nice. But when you're talking about being a super general purpose, like desktop type of box, I'm still not finding that compelling. All right. So they seem to have some agent mode stuff built in here without even doing anything. So let's go over here and create a project. Oh, I don't like the project it wants to create. Let's create something different. Oh, sorry, the keyboard's a little strange here, so I hit the wrong one. Create me a, what do we want? We'll do a PHP script to provide a simple slideshow using JSON for data with a simple editor. We'll just try that and see what it does. Oh, and it instantly wants me to log in. Let's see what happens if I skip for now. Nope, won't let me do anything if I don't sign in. All right, I will need to set up an actual API key on here, which I'm not going to do on stream because I've got to copy keys over and such. What I can do, actually, I think I might be able to. Let me see which ones I have available to me. First off, so what do you think makes for a good Raspberry Pi type system? While I'm doing this, what do we have here? Got a long password. All right, let's see if I can just get a new API key. Punch it in while nobody's looking. Let me go ahead and start C-line installing over here. We'll be needing that. API keys. I know the trick is, since I don't have this on a regular monitor, getting this key into code. Let that install. That took a long time to install. I know it was a big deal for them when they started including Visual Studio Code on the Raspberry Pi 5. I don't know that I'm feeling it. Alright, bring my own API key. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll switch this over to my other display for a minute and get this set up real quick. Alright. Switch over a few things. Alright, that one off. Grab these two. Let this power up. Alright. It's so much more responsive on a real monitor than on my HDMI capture, and maybe that is clouding my opinion a bit. That is very possible. This keyboard's not doing me any favors either. All right. Now, for fun, I have a cheap service with Z.ai that gives you agent programming with credits that renew every day, and it cost me $36 for a year, which is kind of hard to beat. All right, I've got that all set up. We'll switch back to our capture here. Gonna be these two chords. capture device. There we are. Oh, and it's jumped back to 1080p on its own. That's annoying. We don't want that. I wonder if I have any adjustments I can make in OBS to speed this up, or if I'm just stuck with it this way. One more. There we go. The lag here is almost unbearable. All right, there we go. Check my settings in 1 second here. First, we'll make that bigger. All right. Try and turn that off. Probably won't matter. Try that. See if that helps. I think that actually just broke HDMI. Yep. We'll see if just resetting it does what we need. All right. Do we have video? No. All right. Do we have video? Yes, we do. All right. All right. Let's try a new project. I just wrote a slideshow tool yesterday. Oh. Well, I screwed that up. Let's start over. All right, we'll start with that. I know around how fast this is to run on a typical system, and I would say this is actually comparable speed so far. So that's good. I was concerned that the Pi would be overloaded by running the not too light Visual Studio Code and having it do real work. We'll have a look at, do we have HTOP installed? Yes, we do. See how we're doing on CPU load. Not too bad, actually. Not too bad at all. And this is the 8 gigabyte version of the Pi 5, so I'm not too surprised that it's not churning too hard, because this is mostly, in my experience, memory related. And we have lots of memory still unused. Let's see how our editors go in here. Come down and approve it, saving a file. So all the hard work is being done on the AI provider side. But yeah, it's pretty quick. Now, definitely don't ever tell this thing that it can automatically do everything. Oh, they don't even give you an option for saving files. All right. Save. Now, we're not actually going to test it. We're really only interested in how fast it would be. And so far, this seems to be pretty quick. Once you actually get it up and running, it's all good. So with that said, let's go ahead and kill Visual Studio Code. I think we are about done with that. Did I somehow click out of there? Yeah. Ooh. Wow. I can't type on this keyboard for anything. Oh. We're going to do the rest of this through command line. All right, let me get us switched over to not HDMI. 1 second. Do 187. we're going to do the rest of our performance stuff through SSH. And there we go. Hopefully you can all see this okay. Let me increase the font size. All right, that should be good. So here we have a Raspberry Pi. And you can see I've got my trackball and my goofy USB keyboard plugged in. I never really noticed before what it was called, which is odd. This is literally just a laptop trackball and keyboard. To make sure we are up to date, we are all up to date. Let's see how fast it claims our SD card is. Oh. Not all the tools I need are going to already be installed. We're going to try this against my USB SSD in a second also. Yeah, so that 80 megabytes per second sounds like a lot. Doesn't feel like a lot necessarily. Now I've got my inexpensive, oh, this is USB-C. This does not have a USB-C port that I can use, so I need to get a cable. Go USB 3 to USB-C. And plug in our SSD. All right, now we're going to compare against SDA1. Again, this is a not particularly high-end USB enclosure with a SATA SSD in it. And that one claims to be even slower than the SD card, which seems impossible. So we're going to run that again because we are plugged into the USB 3 port. And it could be that my inexpensive drive chassis is the reason we got such a terrible performance there. I do have another less inexpensive option to test when this one's done. Yeah, still 38 some odd. That's really not wonderful. So let's plug in. Another USB storage device. All right, we'll do SDA1 again. we are plugged into the USB 3 ports, I believe. We are. All right, well, that was a much better output there, 374 megabytes per second of actual reading. So that is multiple times the performance of the SD card. So I think you would get a huge boost from using a external USB device for your file system instead of using the SD card. All right, folks who are watching the live stream, go ahead and throw if you've got any particular things you'd like to see tested on this. Go ahead and toss that into the chat, and I'll try and cover what I can. I am noticing that my laptop I'm streaming from is not charging, which is not ideal. And I think I will have to briefly pause the stream to address that and start it right back up. You should automatically stay connected. Testing, testing. Do we have audio? We do have audio. All right, I think we are coming back online here. All right. That one is still stuck. Switch over here. There we go. Overhead view, and it's all working. All right. Back to our terminal. All right, just for grins, go ahead and unplug this guy again. Rudely. It auto-mounted all those devices. All right, so out of the 64 gig SD card, looks like it used about 7 gigs of space for the default install, plus the couple of things that I installed. Not exactly tiny. Let's see what sort of benchmark apps they have available in their OS. We'll try LM Bench. See if we need to give it any options. Oh, must run as root. All right, well, LM bench out of the box does nothing. You have to give it additional config. Let's see what else we can see. Memory bandwidth, not so interesting. Try HPCC. Oops, sorry about that. All right. So what we were going for here were benchmarks that were more or less ready to go, that didn't require a bunch of effort to get them to do something. This one ran, it did something. But they don't really necessarily give you wonderful consumable results. Well, these don't mean much if you don't have other systems to compare them against. All right, well, I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut down the live stream. I've got a few things that I'm going to do for the full video that are going to take a bit longer than I think folks are going to want to sit through during a live stream. So I'll get that rolling, and within a couple of days, I think the full video from this will be online and published after substantial amounts of editing is done. So with that said, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I'll be doing some more live streams on hardware hacking here real soon, and hope to see you then. And everybody take care.